Thank you, Darryl, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We are excited to talk to you about the intentions of your work and where you see your work going in the future and how it can be helpful for people.
Yeah, well, primarily, of course, because Bashar is a first contact specialist, it's all about contact. It's all about disclosure. It's all about letting people know that ETs have been around for a long time and that we're just getting used to the idea of joining a larger galactic family. Of course, when I say that, I'm talking about certain aspects of our civilization, certain aspects of our culture, because there are cultures on the earth that have known about ETs for thousands of years, and this is not anything new to them. So we're really talking about the introduction of this concept a little bit more to Western culture, which has sort of been in denial about the existence of all of this going on for quite some time.
I call the process remembering instead of learning.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that a little bit?
Well, obviously, as spirits, we all know this is all going on. We know this is happening from a higher level. We know it unconsciously, subconsciously. But our physical minds have forgotten this because of the way we've been taught, how we've been brought up on the earth. We're focused on different things. We're very focused into physical materiality. And so, a lot of times, a lot of people in our culture don't feel like they're in touch with that kind of information that our spirits know, our souls know. So it is about remembering what we already know. I mean, that's really what in the channeling Bashar has always said is I'm here to remind you of what you know so you can help remember, what's going on and sort of wake up into what's actually happening that from a spirit level has been going on, but from a physical level you've forgotten.
So Bashar says something about there's the TV set analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's turning into the frequency of the timeline that you would like to be on.
Yeah, he usually uses the TV analogy to explain parallel realities. Because first and foremost, he's basically saying we're always shifting into parallel realities, moment to moment to moment, literally billions of times a second. That's what creates the side effect called time and space and change, is that our consciousness is shifting like through frames of a film strip, like a projector light, and we create the illusion of change, the illusion of time and space and movement. And so the idea of using the TV analogy is to help explain the idea that all of these parallel realities exist at the same time in much the same way that a whole bunch of TV programs are playing at the same time, but you only get the one on your TV that you're tuned to. But when you change the channel, you're changing frequency, you get a different program. It doesn't mean the program you were watching a minute ago has gone away. It's still there, it's still playing, but now you're on a different frequency, so you're receiving different information. And basically, he's saying that's how reality is structured, sort of, and that whatever we tune into as a frequency is the program we get. And so by changing our frequency, we can get different programs. By making sure that we're moving in a positive direction, we will constantly shift or navigate, as he says, through a series of more positive realities, as opposed to shifting our frequency out of fear or negativity into more negative vibrations and getting a series of negative experiences, negative realities, because they all coexist. We have many choices, so it's about us making the choice that we prefer.
Do you think there's a reality right now where disclosure has happened?
Oh, absolutely.
And what does that look like?
Absolutely. Well, it can look like many things. There could be many, many realities where disclosure has happened and probably has happened in any number of ways you can imagine. And there are a number of realities where it will never happen in all the ways you can imagine. So it really is, again, up to us to decide what do we prefer here? What are we open to? What are we willing to receive? And to move in that direction by taking the actions and being in the state of being that is most conducive to inviting contact to happen, disclosure to happen. Uh, we have to be willing to wake up. We have to be willing to look in ourselves and let go of any of the fear-based or negative beliefs that have been blocking that experience from happening. So I think, as Bashar explains it, each of us has a core vibration. And that core vibration, that signature frequency, is always attempting to attract what is in our best interest. So, as people have been learning about things like the law of attraction, it's not wrong that you have to be of the vibration to attract something equal to that frequency. But I think where people have a little bit of a misunderstanding is they think they have to learn that frequency. What Bashar is saying is no, you give off that frequency naturally that attracts everything you need and everything that is to your benefit. All we have to do is learn to get out of the way of that frequency and stop blocking that frequency from bringing us what we need, from helping us make connection. Because everything is connected. That's our natural state. We're all made of the same one thing. We all come from source. So we have to sort of get rid of or clean our attic out of all the negative and fear-based beliefs that block that frequency from bringing us into a state of connection so that we can more easily receive what it is we need to receive. Contact with other beings, whether they're human or not, is part of that idea of being connected to everything. So I think we're waking up to learn that we're not alone. We've never been alone. There are more beings around, more forms of life around than we imagine. And it's now the end of one cycle, the beginning of another, and it's time for us to mature enough to be open to receiving the awareness that we're not alone in the universe.
I mean, the universe. We have multiple beings, we have multiple dimensions, we have, like you said, multiple timelines. What are some tools or ways that people can experience, can learn how to release those blockages?
Well, the basic technique that Bashar usually offers in the channeling is what he refers to as the formula, which is a 5-step process, basically, that he says is a distillation of how we create our reality already. But by understanding it as an instruction manual and those 5 steps, we are allowed to be more conscious of how we do that. And just by following that formula, like following an instruction manual, everything literally starts falling into place because now we're creating our reality experience more consciously with more awareness and of a certain state of being, a more positive vibration. So the 5 steps in a nutshell are basically to act on whatever contains more excitement, more passion, more curiosity, more attractiveness, more love, to do it and take it as far as we can until we can take it no further, until the excitement wanes, but to make sure we're not the one dampening the excitement. So getting in touch with ourselves about what we believe. Step 3 is to act on our excitement with absolutely no insistence or assumption as to what the outcome is supposed to look like, because the truth is we really don't know what the ideal outcome needs to look like. We can sometimes guess, but more often than not, we don't know what it really needs to look like that serves us the best. Step 4 is to remain in a positive state no matter what happens, because anything can serve double duty. And we can get a benefit out of anything, even if it began negatively. If we stay in a positive state, we can still use it to our benefit and learn a lesson from it and move in a positive direction. So, step 4, staying in a positive state, is crucial. Step 5 is to constantly examine ourselves with honest self investigation and to find the negative and fear based beliefs we may have grown up with, to realize that they have nothing to do with the vibration of our true self, to let them go and to clear the way for more positive experiences to come in. So, those 5 steps allow certain effects to start happening in our lives automatically. More synchronicity in a positive way starts being experienced. We feel more effortless in the things that we do and the actions that we take. It becomes the driving engine that gives us the energy to move through life and be excited about getting up in the morning and doing something, right? It's the path of connection. It connects to all expressions of our excitement. It's the path of support, and it brings in whatever form of abundance is necessary, because money isn't the only form of abundance. As Bashar explains it, there are many other forms. It's also the reflective mirror that, when we're acting on our excitement, might bring to our attention any beliefs within us that are out of alignment with our true selves, out of alignment with that excitement. And finding out those things that are not our excitement is part of our excitement, because once we know them, we're conscious of them, then we have something to work with and we can let them go and add the energy and momentum to our excitement. So it's a self-guiding, self-expanding self-perpetuating principle. So just following the 5 steps I mentioned will allow all these things to automatically occur. It works for me. It works for a lot of people that have applied it in their lives. I constantly get people coming back saying, when I finally truly precisely applied that formula, everything changed, and everything changed in a more positive way. So I constantly get the feedback that says basically people don't have to believe that Bashar is real. Could be another aspect of my own consciousness rather than an extraterrestrial being. I can't prove he exists. I have my own proof for myself based on having seen a UFO and all that kind of stuff, and my experiences bringing me to this point. So I have my validations, but no one has to believe that Bashar is real. What's more important is they understand that the information proves that it is real itself. When applied, it actually creates an effect and it makes changes. So that's really what we want people to focus on, is the information that comes through the channeling, not so much the idea that they have to believe Bashar is a real ET for them to buy into the information. That, I think, is the most important aspect of it.
I think that's super important because I know that I had an experience on board a ship, and I didn't know how to describe it to anybody. I didn't know even that that could be possible, and so it took many, many years for someone to tell me what happened, like when I explained it.
Right.
And I always get these downloads.
Mhm.
Now I don't call them a being. I haven't named that being, but it's very familiar to me and it's very real. And so when that happens and I really follow those things, you're right, the synchronicities,
Right.
the like, just even being here right now, like this lights us up. You
Yeah.
know, we're so excited to
Right,
talk
right,
to you
right,
and learn
right.
from you.
Oh, thank you.
And
Me too. Thank you for doing this. It's an opportunity to share information with other people as well.
yeah, so it's, so we really are truly following the things that you're saying and living it, and I can attest that it works.
Yeah, it
Very much
absolutely
works.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't keep doing it.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this?
I've been channeling for 40 years now. Yeah. But now I saw the UFO that started all this 50 years ago in 1973 on 2 occasions. So that's what started this whole process of me investigating what's this all about. Because, you always hear stories, oh yeah, there people see UFOs. But when you actually physically see something like that in broad daylight at close range, okay, what I've been told the world is not what the world is. There's something else going on here. So I really desperately needed to find out what was happening. And that's what led me to understanding other metaphysical concepts over time. And then eventually going into a channeling class 10 years after the sighting, because I didn't understand how channeling could be taught. I just thought it was something that automatically happened to people out of the blue, right? But then in the class under guided meditations, I got that telepathic hit from Bashar and his people. It's like, okay, we made this agreement. It's time to begin. If this is still something you want to do you want to do it? Right? Because in the class, I had validations that this was not just my imagination. There was something real happening. And eventually, I was asked to be a subject of a study of a woman that was getting a doctoral thesis between channeling and psychology. And I would channel for her friends. She would take her notes. But word of mouth spread, and more people started showing up to those channelings. Eventually, I got asked to do it in different places, in different cities, in different countries, and here we are 40 years later. So,
And do you enjoy it?
oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't. It gives me a lot. The channeling state itself is extremely beneficial. It's a meditative state, but it's a very active meditative state for me. So it gives me a lot, and that's another reason I keep doing it, aside from the fact that a lot of other people say they get a lot out of it, and it's that appreciation and that gratitude that really keeps me going, because I know it's helping people, and I love to help people. So that's why I do it.
So in disclosure, we're finding that there's a lot of fear based on even talking about there's people's sightings. Us doing this show, I mean, I had fear inside myself of just being in this world of ETs and aliens and stuff, and it's something I had to overcome in myself. So I feel like a lot of this disclosure is facing our fears.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's what I said. You have to get the negative and fear-based beliefs out of the way so that what can happen can happen. Because there's a lot of positive things that can occur if you remove those obstacles. Um, but a lot of people have been sort of indoctrinated with fear-based stories about all of this stuff, and they don't really have a wide understanding of what encountering an ET would be like, or even, I mean, what we're all spirits, ETs or humans or, whatever. We all start on that level, on the non physical level. So, on that level, we're all the same. Of course, when we physicalize ourselves, when we have physical experiences, and we create physical personalities that have different belief systems and different perspectives, then we become a little bit more segregated, isolated, and separated in our belief systems. And it is a lot of negative belief systems that have perpetuated the idea of fear of the unknown, fear of the when we don't know it. But there's some physical reasons why that fear happens too. When human physical bodies are exposed to higher frequency vibrations, which many of the ETs observing Earth have, the human physiology reacts to that because it's a very similar frequency to the idea of spirit. And when we're exposed to that higher frequency, our physical mind, or at least our subconscious self, interprets that as being exposed to a situation where you're about to die. And you go into panic mode, you go into survival mode. And that's what creates a lot of the fear. That's what brings a lot of that to the surface is fight or flight. I'm exposed to this energy. That means I'm in danger of being annihilated. I'm about to die, and I have to protect myself. And so you go into fear, and you have to do something to make sure you're not dying. So it's about calming the physical mind to the point where it can be exposed to those higher frequencies without going into panic mode, without going into survival mode, to understand it's not going to be annihilated. It just has to raise its frequency, and it can be part of the experience too. So it's about literally having a dialogue with your physical mind to calm it down, to let it know it's going to be okay, that you're kind of raising your frequency together with your spirit, your physical mind, all together moving up and becoming more vibrationally compatible with beings that already operate on a much, much higher frequency. So just getting used to that. And that's really the purpose of Bashar's information, is not only to prepare us for the idea of contact, but in applying his information that helps make our lives better and more positive, it actually helps us raise our vibration and frequency-wise meet them halfway so that we're not so different energetically from them, and we won't go into panic mode when we meet them. That's why they keep their distance at the moment and just let the information do the work, because they know that there are certain species we could tolerate, but there are species we can't. And if we raise our vibration, it'll be more likely that we can accept and interact with those higher vibrational species. But I'm sure that when contact happens, they're going to start introducing us to the ones that are probably closer to us, more like us, so that we're not freaking out. It's something we can more easily relate to, hybrids and Pleiadians and those that seem to be our genetic relatives or cousins in some way, shape, or form that are humanoid in form. So it's not such a stretch. Then later they'll probably introduce us, when we're ready for it, to species that are nothing like us. But there'll be a gradual process of introduction because they don't want to shock us. They want us to get in there gradually and be comfortable during that process. Otherwise,
what you were talking about with like the fear of death, it kind of leads into the next question that I wanted to explore is, when we do pass, we have another dimension that we're in, but we're still there. Very, very evident. So much evidence that we're still there. And I know I've had a near-death experience where I saw this, I felt it, and I wanted to stay there. But
most people do.
I know. But what I really want to explore now that I'm back is to let, especially my children and the people close to me know that when I pass along, I will send you signs. I will still be communicating with you. And I feel like if we can get to a place where we realize that the afterlife is also associated with these other beings, we are
Right.
in a different frequency, we can open ourselves up to this.
Right.
So knowing that we're still going to have these relationships when we pass along to this next dimension.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that interaction, like in that
Yeah,
after?
I mean, the relationship never ends. We have our soul families, and many of them incarnate with us. Many of them don't and become our guides, or at least someone we can kind of rely on for assistance when we need it. We're always interacting, whether we know it or not, in some way, shape, or form. And that's the interesting thing about the vibrational state that a lot of ETs do operate on, which is very similar to the state of spirit. So when people raise their vibration to get ready to interact with ETs, they usually also find themselves starting to be able to perceive spirit and other energy phenomena, because it all is kind of on the same level. So it really is an all-encompassing endeavor to really open us up to the idea of who we actually truly are, because we are really truly spirit first. You know, it's as above, so below, not as below, so above. It starts there, and this is a projection. This is an after effect of the idea that we are spirits. So when we die, all we're doing is waking up into our true selves. Bashar's even compared it to the idea of like waking up in the morning as a physical being, and maybe you had this super realistic dream and you go, wow, well, no matter how real that dream was, now that I'm awake, this is who I really am. But basically he's saying, when you die, it's kind of like that. You are waking up and go, wow, that seems so real, but this is who I really am. This is actually me waking up. And when I wake up as a physical being, part of me is actually going to sleep. So it's actually just the opposite. When we wake up into spirit, we're waking up. When we wake up in physical reality, we are partially sleeping, because it's a dream that our spirit is having. That's what physical reality is. This isn't actually a place unto itself. This is all happening within our consciousness. Bashar has recently described the idea as like, if you imagine that you are a sphere of energy, that's you as a soul. Because in its natural form, a spirit really does is perceived mostly as an orb of light. It can take different shapes, but that's sort of its natural shape, is just as an orb of light. It's an energy form. And if you imagine that energy form, that sphere, has certain frequencies and vibrations within it, like ripples in a pond. And when it wants to experience physical reality, it allows certain of those ripples, certain frequencies, to sort of mingle and coalesce in the center of the sphere. The sphere remains, doesn't go away, doesn't disappear, but vibrations within it focus into the center, and it creates almost like a little crystalline kernel in the middle, a seed. It is that seed that is our physical selves, and it's within the soul. It doesn't leave spirit reality. We never leave spirit reality. That's our natural state. We're there right now. But what we're experiencing as ourselves, as our physical personalities, is something that's happening at the center of our soul. So it's not so much that our bodies have a soul, it's that our souls have a body, right? And we're experiencing this concentrated focus we call physical reality, and reinforce it with the idea that we believe this is real, and therefore it feels real, it feels solid. But when we start softening that crystalline seed in the middle, then we start having these experiences that we call lucid dream. And when we expand a little more, we start having these experiences we call astral projection, body experiences. And then we have near-death experiences where we're closer to being back to the diameter of our soul's sphere. And when we die, we are our soul again. So the idea of all those experiences are simply different stages of us relaxing the physical perspective and broadening it back out to the diameter of what we are, using the sphere analogy, as an actual non-physical entity of light and energy as a soul. So
we found that as we've been doing our C5 meditations, or we've been joining people and we're trying to contact the different beings, what we found is different people that had passed come into the circle, or
Mhm.
different ancestors, like multiple times. We weren't expecting that. Like, oh, they're right there. Oh.
Because everything is here.
Yeah.
Everything is only separated by a little difference in frequency.
So it's us opening our consciousness at the time in this collective group that seems to really intensify it.
Well, again, it's just like switching your channel on television. All the programs are right here. There are all spirit beings, all parallel realities are right here. We're just not tuned to it. But because this is now the age of exploring consciousness, we're broadening our bandwidth. We can start perceiving things we couldn't perceive before that have always been here. We can tap into parallel realities and have downloads and different kinds of experiences. Things like precognition, things like deja vu, stuff like that are all side effects of tapping into different levels of reality because our bandwidth is broader. We can start perceiving spirits, we can start communicating with them more consciously. Again, not that we haven't had them here all the time, but our bandwidth is broader now. We're picking up on more information. So that's one of the side effects of the expansion of our consciousness and the exploration of our spirituality is we can take in more. We can handle more information. And a lot of that extra information happens to reside in different realities and different dimensions. And so we're now realizing, oh, our consciousness is bigger than just this. We actually can contain information from more of this, all of this. And again, as we go back to being our soul, then we just suddenly know a lot more. It's not even about believing it anymore. We just know a lot more because we are those kinds of receptors. We're a better antenna to receive information from a larger swath of existence from the multiverse.
Bringing it back to Earth,
Mm.
what does this mean for our planet?
You never actually change the planet you're on. You're shifting to different versions of Earth, billions of times per second. In this conversation, we have shifted through billions of versions of Earth. That's what creates change, time, space, our ability to move as a physical being, the illusion of movement, the illusion of distance. So the Earth we were on moments ago is still there. We're not there anymore. So it's not so much that we're changing the Earth, even though it looks like the Earth is changing. It's that we're actually going to a different Earth that is already that way, over and over and over and over again. And it's already more like the changes we've made within ourselves. Positive, negative, neutral, whatever direction you go in. So what it means for the planet is that there are any number of parallel planets. And it's what it means for us is how we choose to navigate in the direction of the versions of Earth that already coexist that are more in alignment with what we prefer to experience. That's our learning curve. That's our lessons. Does it make us more compatible with a more positive version of Earth that already exists? Does it make it more vibrationally compatible with negative versions of Earth that already exist? Because everything already exists. Versions of Earth that are heaven on Earth, versions of Earth that are hell on Earth.
So is my personal consciousness as I raise it, and then, her personal consciousness as she raises it. If I raise mine, I'm connecting with a version of her that's in another reality. How does the collective consciousness play into that? Or
yeah, that's a good question. The collective consciousness has a certain number of things it can agree can happen to anyone in that group that has agreed to play by those rules. But it also has a set of things that can be outside of those rules.
Okay.
And if someone decides to go outside of those rules and not play by those rules anymore, they're in a reality different enough that you never perceive them again. And they never perceive you again.
So kind of like a collective is sort of a fuzzy area where there's people there not, or beings or whatever that kind of come in and out.
Yeah, it's dependent on whether we have decided that the greater being that we are should have a version of ourselves in that reality, or whether that's simply not a lesson we need. So you can shift to a reality where there might be versions of people you know because their greater self has determined, yeah, I'm going to have a version of myself that's vibrationally compatible enough with you that we will still be able to be in touch with each other. And there may be realities where it's like, whatever happened to that person? I never saw them again for the rest of my life. I don't know what happened to them. Did they die? Did they just disappear? Where did they go? You know, doesn't really matter what the mechanism is. If you're not vibrationally compatible enough, you will never interact again. And there are people around us all the time that we are simply not vibrationally compatible with. They're in different realities. That's why there are parallel realities. You're not on their frequency. But they're here, but you're not on their frequency. Now, sometimes again, because our bandwidth is broadening, things can sort of slip in and out. We can start perceiving things, and that's where you get some of these stories where it's like, there was this person and I saw them one moment and then they turned the corner and they were gone, and they couldn't have run that fast. They were just not here anymore. So it may be that sometimes there are little slippages and we pass through another person's level of reality, sometimes without even knowing it, because our minds wander and we open up to something, and for a moment we're somewhere else and we see, you know, you've heard those stories where I went down the street and I saw this building and, you know, all that, and then I thought it was a really cool looking building, and then the next time I was driving with my friend and I said, oh, you got to see this building, and I went down the street and that building isn't there. Never was there.
You know,
Happened to you, me.
it's this. So this is a really quick story. I was at the grocery store and I put an avocado, a bottle of wine, and eggs on the thing. And I looked in front of me, and this woman had an avocado, the same bottle of wine, and eggs. And I looked at her, and she was this old woman, this little old woman. She was like, kind of had like a shawl on. And then I looked up at the checker, and I looked back, and she had already paid and was off. And I asked the checker, I said, wait, did she have the same things I had? Like, and I thought, did I just see myself in the future?
Don't know.
You know, I don't know. But then the checker was really confused too, and we were both kind of just, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like,
there are all
so
sorts of
strange.
reasons for things like that, all sorts of synchronous reasons that can happen. But I think the idea is to be open to all the possibilities, because you can't just necessarily, well, I mean, you know, yes, sometimes it happens just because synchronicities happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens because we're forgetful. And sometimes it happens for a lot of other reasons, but sometimes it happens because parallel realities exist. So you just kind of have to look and sense, okay, what was the reason for it this time? Because it can be different on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
But we have to be open to all of them if we want to have at least those reasons included in our understanding of reality, instead of just shutting them out. It's like, nah, that's impossible. That could never happen. Of course it can happen. We just have to be broader in our description of what's possible that can happen. You know, but collective consciousness does play by certain rules that makes it a collective, right? So it's like saying, I'm going to play the game of chess. And I can use whatever kind of pieces I want. They can be made out of whatever material I want. The board can be made out of whatever material I want. I can use a different strategy than you're using to play the game of chess. But I have to play by the rules of chess. Otherwise, I'm playing checkers or something else that you're not playing. So there are certain parameters within a collective consciousness that says, this is the game we're playing. If you go outside that, you're playing a different game, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
yeah.
But now, because of broadening our bandwidth, collective consciousness say, okay, now it's okay for you to play chess and checkers. And that's okay. We can include that in our collective consciousness. So now there's more possibilities that you can experience. So that's kind of what we're doing, is in increasing the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.